So going into my 4th week of marathon training, I've been timing myself and I'm a little bit slow. So I'm really pushing speed training, hill training, all that kind of stuff. To help with that, last week I met up with a guy called Richard Hyde. He's a fell runner and a ultramarathon runner. So he had some really interesting perspectives on training and motivation, etc. Have a look. Well, thanks for your time, Richard. Do you want to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure, yeah. Well, I've been running, I guess, 20 years, fairly competitively. Started out as a road runner, joined a local running club. After university, of the indulgence of university, wanted to get fit, so I got straight into a running club. Started on the roads and just enjoyed the whole getting fit, competitive nature of being part of a club. But after a certain time, I just wanted to explore a bit more. I wanted to kind of explore a bit more of the wilderness, because I also like a bit of rambling. We go to quite remote places. I joined a different club who were more into something called fell running, which was a bit of an unknown quantity to me when I first joined, but they said give it a go, so I did do. And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, I suspect, again competitively. And that's sort of grown and grown from initial sort of tentative inroads into something which I do kind of week in, week out now. So that is my thing.
What makes something a fell run?
A fell race is off-road, and it involves ascent to a lesser or greater extent. They're classified according to distance, but also the amount of ascent that they contain. So you can have long races which don't have too much ascent, but you can have short races which have an incredible amount of ascent. And so you can pick and mix, basically.
So I mean, you told me about some of the challenges you've done before, and to be honest, when you told me about them, I thought you kind of got the decimal point in the wrong place because there were so many miles. What are the most difficult challenges you've done?
There are some classic challenges. There are some classic long fell races which every fell runner has in the back of their mind that they want to do one day. One of those, the ultimate challenge, I think, is something called the Bob Graham Round, which is a historical challenge of a circuit of the Lake District, which is 24 hours. You've got to do it in 24 hours. It involves climbing 42 peaks in the Lake District and ascending approximately 28,000 feet, which is Everest. It's got to be done in 24 hours. So, I mean, this isn't something you undertake lightly. It was not really my thing, but my colleagues in the club said you're ready for it after 10 years of competing. So I was bundled in the back of a minibus, taken to the Lake District, dumped in the middle of Keswick at midnight and kick-started. I attempted it twice and didn't do it, but the buzz that you get out of training for and the support you get for those sort of challenges is just immense. I mean, the fact I didn't do it is not irrelevant, but to be honest, it's not the most important thing.
Because you still covered a lot of distance doing that, didn't you?
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, I got to 21 hours and I just basically poleaxed into the ground. But it was just a fantastic experience. And it just gives you a bedrock of confidence in the hills.
I mean, 21 hours, psychologically, how many times are you sort of going down the rabbit hole when it comes to... Because I assume you're going to get to some point where you think you can't do this, where you're struggling. Talk me through that a little bit.
It's all part of the game. Any sort of ultra distance is a mental game. You do not think about the total distance. You cannot. Well, I cannot work like that. You've got to break it down into portions. You've got to think about the next hill, the next feeding station. Where you're going to get that semolina pudding that your wonderful support team are going to provide for you, or that lovely nutritional drink. You do go through phases of when your body just feels like it's breaking down, but the more you do it, the more you train for these things, the more you realise that it ebbs and flows. You have low points, but then when you get to the next summit and you see the checkpoint down below, you can't describe how your body suddenly just energises itself, and you seem to just find calories, as Randolph Fiennes used to say, one more calorie. There's always one more calorie to be had in your body. So it definitely, it's a mental game as much as anything else.
I hate to say this, but When I talk about you in terms of the sort of races and stuff, you like the fell races, the race you just described, you are kind of almost like the sort of freak show in terms of distance and stuff, because people do have the reaction of why would you want to do that, why would you want to put yourself through something like that. Most people can't comprehend wanting to run half a marathon or a marathon. Why do you want to throw yourself up hills? Why do you want to push yourself like that? What are you getting out of it?
It's a very slow process getting into what I've done. It certainly starts with trail races, with cross country, and I get such a huge buzz out of getting lost. I mean, you can't just, for people who don't understand wilderness and don't feel a bit unnerved about getting lost. You can't. You either got it or you haven't. I love it. The more lost you get, the better. You just get off with a map and just go for as long as you want to. It's freedom. It's unhindered by any equipment, anyone else. You're on your own. I mean, it just is the sport which appeals to me. But it's a slow process to get from doing the short ones to doing something which is going to push your body further than you've ever gone before, and that takes probably 5-10 years to get to that point where really you're going to be safe and you're not going to risk anyone else as well.
And what stage are you at with it now? Because obviously you've been doing it for some time. Are you wanting to keep pushing yourself to do things further, or are you kind of in a kind of a comfortable groove where you enjoy what you're doing? And
yeah, I mean, I'm 50, so I've entered a new competitive category, which is always interesting. I think there are more faster runners in my category now than there were in the previous one, so it can be a bit demoralising. But I'm quite happy just with the level I'm at. I think you reach a peak with your training and what your body is capable of, and I think I've reached mine, which I'm perfectly accepting of. And I think it's a case now of just enjoying the sport for what it is. I mean, the club, it's great to see new people coming in and actually passing on some of the confidence, some of the knowledge, some of the experience you've got to the younger guys, and seeing them beat you, which has its downside. But then it's great to see the sport growing and growing. I mean, off-road running has grown over the last number of years. Through a lot of the ultra distance races which are coming into the sport. It's just great to see more people out there doing stuff. So I'm happy just to be a kind of a mentor, if you like, to some of the younger people who are clearly going to beat me.
so how does your training and your preparation for events changed over time? Is there things you do now that you didn't do before?
Absolutely. I think when you're young, when you first start running or any sport really, you tend to just do it and think you're invincible. You think you can just do as much as you want and your body will just take it, which I was very guilty of when I started road running. Just used to run. That's all I did, didn't do anything else. But then you get to a point when your body starts to kind of indicate that it's not too happy with you just doing the running. In my case, it was my back. Completely neglected my core and my back for 10, 15 years. And all of a sudden, the whole thing just kind of fell apart. You go and see the specialist, and they explain it to you in such clear language that it's just blatantly obvious what you've done. You've just neglected that part of your body at the expense of something else. And I mean, I sort of liken it to trying to run with a stack of cream cakes on plates. I mean, that's your backbone basically on its own. If you don't actually support that with some sort of scaffolding around it, the whole thing's just going to topple over. So what I do now is core work. I know so many people who've sort of haven't been through this process and just keep trying to do the same thing, and they're constantly getting hip problems, structural problems around here, whatever. But core work is absolutely critical if you want a kind of a long, successful sporting career, I think. So that's where I focus in the minute, as much as running, to be honest.
Okay. And within your running sessions, is it all sort of long runs, or do you do any kind of speed training or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I do a mix, a real mix. Traditional long run at the weekends, 10, 15, 20 miles. Steady, but just out for a nice jog. In the week, we'll have a club run, again 10, fairly pacey, trying to keep up with the young ones again. But then quality sessions as well, maybe a track session, We're here on Bramcote Park. There's a track over there which we often meet on a Monday night and do short, sharp intervals around there, or hill work. And this isn't necessarily only limited to fell running. I think hill work and sessions speed sessions are as valuable for road running, for any sort of form of leg exercise. So yeah, hill sessions as a fell runner, you've got to be able to get up and down hills pretty quickly to stay with the pack. So they are pretty essential to everything I do now.
Okay. So as someone who's attempting the first marathon, you recommend, even though it's relatively flat, undulating, you recommend a bit of hill work?
Absolutely. I think, again, that just running off road, every footfall is different. That's the beauty of it, and it's contested, but people say, they get less injuries if they run off road, because if you think about it, every time you put your foot down, you're putting it down slightly differently.
Yeah.
So you're using different muscles, you're strengthening different muscles. Going uphill, you're engaging your core, you're engaging your psoas muscle, which is this huge muscle in here, which lifts your leg up. Going downhill, your quads burn a lot more than they do on the road. So you're strengthening the joints, your bones grow. I mean, the whole kind of frame is just built up, and you get seriously out of breath.
Yeah, I was going to ask about cardio. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can push it as hard as you want to. I mean, I like a session in these woods here where there's two parts to the hill. There's a slower hill which just gets your breathing going, but then there's the last sort of 20 metres which is absolutely lung busting. You get at the top and you have to crawl almost to get over the last lip. You feel great after it.
Yeah.
It's all about getting the heart and lungs moving as much as the legs.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Shall we? Let's go and give it a go.
Sure is. Let's get to the hills. How was that?
Well, thanks. Hope I didn't push too hard. You're all right.
It's hard enough? No, it's always good to get on the hills, definitely.
Well, thanks for your help, mate.
Pleasure. Keep it up. Good luck.